Joining us on the show is Mr. Arvind Virmani. He's an economist, member Niti Aayog. Sir, thank you for taking time out. Thank you for speaking to News9. I want to understand from you, one of the big takeaways from the budget was, of course, that fiscal deficit target has now been reduced for financial year 24 to 4.9%. Is it optimistic or is it realistic?
Definitely realistic. I think all of you are aware of the fact that tax revenues have been higher than was predicted, and of course everybody also knows that the RBI subvention was increased, but the tax stuff will continue because of the growth rate assumption is very conservative. Many people noted that the growth rate of 6.5 to 7% was on the lower side. The RBI has 7.2, even IMF has 6.8. My own forecast was 7% plus minus 0.5% and remains that. So I think it's quite realistic.
All right, realistic. And in fact, as you rightly pointed out, the economic survey predicts, of course, 6.5 to 7% growth rate. Many would say this is an underestimation because what RBI has said, what the government has said, what various global agencies have said, all of them are hoping for an upward of 7%. So 6.5 to 7% does look like it's a bit of an underestimation there.
Yeah, but it's not so that all the, as I said, the IMF estimate is only gone up to 6.8, but I'm sure in 3 to 4 months they'll all come to my 7%.
Okay.
But that's partly a joke.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, I think it has been, it's conservative, and I think it's deliberate, and I think it's correct. It's better to be surprised on official numbers. You see, we can say anything, but a budget has to meet its target. So I have always said, in fact, when there was planning commission, I disagreed. I still remember, I forget which plan it was. Everybody said, let's raise it to 8%. I said, stick to 7%. So I believe it's better to be a little cautious when you're making the budget because otherwise you'll get some nasty inflation surprises.
Right. You're saying cautious. Some people may just say optimistic, but nonetheless cautious of the external factors that India cannot control. But I want to bring you back to the budget. There's been substantial allocation towards Bihar and Andhra Pradesh, and these, of course, are partners with the government at the center. Do you think it's a disproportionate allocation to the tune of about 41,000 crore rupees, 26,000 for Bihar, for road construction, 15,000 for Andhra, for capital redevelopment? Yeah. Do these make economic sense to you, sir?
So let's start with the region, right, which is the poorest region of the country. It's basically what, in my time when I was not a member in the planning commission, we used to talk about the heartland and the eastern region. Okay, so that used to be Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, parts of Orissa, parts of Andhra, and so on. So I think some parts of that, and Bengal, by the way, I can tell you stories about that, but I won't because it's opposition. But anyway, so I think there is a rational reason for helping these states build infrastructure, at least, which the government has been doing all over the country. So as far as so we have to look at the specific things. Tourism, government has been talking about for 10 years and so on. So I don't think there's anything there which is outside the broad program of the government. But yes, you can say that X state is getting more or less than Y state. I really do not have an answer to that because that's political. But if I was to give a political answer, I would say look back at governments, coalition governments, and see where they spend money, and you'll find very similar actions.
Okay, I want an economic answer, sir. I'm looking for an economic rationale and not a political.
I've given you. I've given you the economic answer first, and the politics was just one line, which was only partly politics.
All right. All right, I want to come to manufacturing right now. Now, there are of course some key areas in which India has emerged as a manufacturing hub and shown its prowess, and one of which is electronics and smartphone making to be particular. Now, budget has of course cut down basic customs duty on mobile phones, mobile phone PCBAs and mobile chargers to 15%. What sort of impact are we looking at on electronics exports of this cut in basic customs duty?
So, there's long experience from East Asia and Southeast Asia, which I studied 20, 30 years ago. If you are going to use industrial policy, you have to be very alert, and it has to be selective, and it has to be time bound. This is something I have said for I don't know how many decades, that protection should always be temporary, and the incentives should be very focused and small and for a specific duration, because that is what I learned from whether it was South Korea or Taiwan or anybody. So the key is to help companies come up to a certain threshold, and then they have to learn to compete. So any industry, the protection should be temporary and it must come down. So if you see these changes in that light, I think they are economically rational. I cannot comment on the specific all of them, because I have not studied it, and that's the point about industrial policy. You have to be very careful. It is not some general theory. You have to look at each industry and see, okay, this part of the process will take 3 years, so we will protect for 3 years, this one we should do for 1 year, etc. Of course, there is a lack of information, so you have to watch it every time. So the decision, I think, by and large is correct.